Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'll be working on this larch bonsai, and as you can see, it's quite overgrown. The pot that this tree is in, I just got it last fall and I kind of slip potted the tree into this pot. I did some root raking and a bit of pruning, but not very much. So this spring I wanted the tree to kind of get itself established in the pot, so I kind of let it grow in spring. And I was always meaning to prune it kind of late spring, and I just never did. It's grown all summer with no pruning at all, so it's gone quite wild up top. I'm going to prune the tree up today, and I hope to display it in our bonsai show, which is coming up in just 6 days. So we'll see how it looks after pruning. After a long summer of growing, I'll prune the larch back to shape today in the bonsai zone. Because I've let this tree grow wild, you can see the different areas of vigor. Up top near the apex, the new shoots are very thick and they're extremely long. And as you go down the tree has less vigor down near the bottom, and the shoots are skinnier, slimmer, and they're not quite as long. So yeah, so we'll have to prune the top of the tree quite severely and less towards the bottom to kind of balance out the vigor of the tree. I'm going to start at the top of the tree, pruning all the branches back. And after I prune the branches back, I may have to come in and remove some of the shoots if I don't want them in the final design. So I'll start right up top here, and there's the thick shoot right here that I'm going to prune back quite short, maybe to here, leaving about this much left on the branch. So here I go, just like that. Oh, it always smells nice, the larches too. And now I'll come in here and prune this one. This tree has kind of a triangular shape to it. That's how I've always pruned it. I find it's always best to prune a little longer than you finally intend the tree to be, and then you can go in and reduce branches further as you work on the tree. You don't have to do the pruning all at once. And this tree probably won't look very good for the show because I'm pruning back some of these thicker branches and there'll be no sub-branching coming off it. So I'll see how it looks. I don't have to put it in the show. You can see on the branches there's a dark green first flush of growth. That's from this early spring. And then later in the summer a second flush of growth comes out, and that's a lighter green color. And then it's possible that towards fall, I've still got another month of growing, that I may get a third flush of growth on these same branches. There are buds on these branches that are already formed, but I just prune anywhere and it'll form new buds. There's dormant buds at the base of each one of these needles, so you don't really have to worry about pruning back to a bud facing the correct direction or anything. Just prune more to shape. On a larch anyway. Basically a profile pruning for starters. I've got the basic shape of the tree pruned now. You can see it's rounded on top and tapers down. But there's a lot of branches that are just, shooting off in all directions. Some sticking straight up out of the branches. So now I've got to come in and kind of refine my branch structure. Refining the branch structure will allow you to look in and see all the individual branches, so it doesn't just look like one big green mass of a canopy. So any shoot sticking straight up, I shorten quite a bit, almost down to little stubs. That kind of creates a bit of a pad on your branch. I've got all the vertical shoots on this branch pruned back to kind of create a pad, and there's still a lot of shoots sticking out that kind of grow in all directions from the branch. So now I've got to come in and prune those. So I've got to be quite selective and just see what's growing in what direction. So this branch is kind of growing back in towards the trunk, so it'll have to be removed completely. It's just not growing in a good direction. Like that. Some of the other ones that are sticking out from the profile when you're looking down at the tree, need to be pruned back. One back here. I've got this lowest branch roughly pruned to shape now. Now I'm going to come underneath the branch and see if there's anything sticking out down below. Usually you want to keep a nice clean branch line on the bottom. So there's one shoot sticking straight down, I'll remove or shorten dramatically. Another one here, can remove. All these needles that are sticking down from the bottom can also be pinched off. You just grab them with your fingers and pull. That helps clean up the bottom line of the branch. All those long first flush needles, which are longer than the second flush of growth, can also be pulled off. If you see any needles that are really long, you can just selectively pull them out. I'll come out front and see how that looks now. This branch is looking much better. It's still not perfect, but it's looking better. I will have to go in and remove some needles so you can actually see some of the branch structure in this area. I don't like the fact that there's just this branch coming into this massive foliage. You can't see any secondary branch structure. So that needs to be cleaned out, and that's probably will be accomplished by, a bit of thinning. There's a lot of shoots coming out from one point and a lot of needle plucking, just so you can see some of the branch structure. Here's a top view of that branch, and you can see, you can see the branch coming in, but you can't really see a whole lot else. So I'm going to, pluck out some of these needles just to simplify the branch a little so you can see a bit of the branch structure. I'm going to prune this branch off totally. It's kind of not growing in a very good place. Prunes out some of these needles. I like to do the detailed pruning of these larches after the needles have fallen off, but I don't have that option today. There's some branches growing on the inside here I can remove. Just little shoots. So this branch, I still have a lot of shoots coming out. I don't really want one growing in towards the other branch, so I'll take that one out. And then I've got two shoots coming from the end of this branch, and I got a third one back here that I'll shorten back, like that. And same with this one. I've got two shoots here. Take that third one off. This one gets shortened. There's a branch underneath, which is nice, so I can shorten these ones a bit more. They're a little long, like that. There's a branch here that can be removed. It's growing in between some other branches, just to thin it out a bit. So you can see that branch is cleaned up a lot. There's a shoot sticking up here that's getting quite thick, and I don't mind if they're, small little shoots, but I think that probably needs removing, so I'm going to take it off now. Just like that. Yeah, that's much better. I may get the tweezers in here and just do a little more needle plucking so you can see a little more of the branch structure. So I'm just coming in with the tweezers and plucking out some of the needles that are crossing over the top of the branches, that are kind of growing in towards the center of the tree. Just thinning them out, not removing them totally, but just removing the ones that stand out as being, not very tidy looking. Sometimes a bit of order in a tree makes it look more finished. If you have this, ragged mass of foliage, it may look kind of wild, but when it's in a show, it looks it stands out as being unrefined. There's a few yellowish needles in here I'm just plucking out too, like that. If you see, a lot of needles in one area, too dense, you can prune them back or pinch them out. to kind of balance the foliage on the tree so it doesn't look, you know, heavier in one section. Now ideally all this work should have been done, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I just didn't have time to get to it. Busy summer. I think that's good. I don't think I can do any more work on that branch for today. I'll go through the other branches now, refining them, just like I did with this lowest branch here, you know, working away at all these upper ones. We've had some good rain the last couple of days, which is good for the moss. It should look good for the show. You don't want any long branches that are just straight. You want to prune them back shorter, and then it gets kind of a bit of movement to the branch as it grows and subdivides. So yeah, all those shoots that were sticking straight out really long, they have to get pruned back, and then, you know, you'll get more branching on them next year. And it'll look quite nice. Shortening them so you don't have these long sticks. So when you grow out the tree, you know, you've got to grow it out gradually so you don't just have this rapid long growth. So you have, you know, small internodes where the branch kind of has movement to it and change of direction and taper. So yeah, I plan to grow this tree out a little more, but I have to do it slowly. You can't do it all at once, or it just looks coarse and unrefined. So I'm just trying to separate this branch now. And I did prune this tree quite far back in recent videos, trying to, you know, get a nice branch structure eventually. I'm working away at the apex of the tree now. It's a fairly slim tree, so I'm trying to get a fairly tight triangle at the top. I don't want it a big round bushy dome. And that'll, you know, suit the style of the rest of the branches. This back branch here, I may have to drop down. It's kind of in line with this foliage pad, so it should be down a little lower. So I may have to put a guy wire just to hold that branch down like that. So I'll continue at the top here. I like the trees where the bottom branches are kind of drooping, the middle branches are more parallel, and the upper branches in the canopy are going more upright. So I've got to keep that in mind as I'm pruning away here. Pinching out needles, just so I can go in and see what's going on with the branches. There's a long one there. You'll also find that the density of branches gets really high as you go up the tree. You get a lot of new shoots coming out, and it becomes just a thick mass of branches. So I have to come in and thin them, keeping the branches I want and pruning away the thicker ones usually, like this one and this one. Yeah, you want to keep all your branches in the apex quite thin. So as they get thicker, you just cut them off, replace it with something else. I'll step back and see how that's looking. I've got the tree on the bench now, so you can kind of see the branch structure more clearly. So this is, I don't know if this is the front or the back. The tree looks quite good from either direction. And I like the roots on this side better. You can see all the, you know, more surface roots. It looks more rugged. It has more pruning scars and more surface roots. That branch, the lowest branch on the right hand side, is the one I want to pull down. So I'll show you what that looks like. So that looks much better when that's pulled down. I'll change the tree around to the front now, and you can see the other view. And I don't know, I've never decided which looks better. It just looks different. So there's the other view, the other front, or the back, I don't know. I never liked this as the front because kind of midway up, it had this bulge in the trunk. So a couple of years ago, I took the branch pruners and I carved out that bulge, and it's healed over almost completely now. It doesn't have the same bark texture as the rest of the tree, but the wound is completely sealed over now in just a couple of years. And The trunk kind of comes towards you a little more from this direction. The roots aren't quite as nice. It's not maybe quite as rugged looking, but it's still a pretty good front, I think. And I'll show you what this looks like with the branch pulled down. So again, that looks much better with that branch pulled down to get a bit of separation between those two branches on the left-hand side. So that'll be my next task, is to wire that branch down. And I think I'll use a guy wire. I don't need to, bend the branch at the base or anything or shape it. The branch is fine. It just needs to be pulled downwards. There's two ways I could wire that branch down. I could do the traditional way, coiling wire around the branch and then bend it into position. But that would require quite a thick wire, and I've only got the aluminum colored wire in that thickness, so that wouldn't look good at all, especially if I want to put this in the show. So I looked at the bottom of the pot. There's only 2 drainage holes. There's no holes for wire. Sometimes they have small little holes that you can run wires up. I think I'll run the wire between the drainage holes, and I'll try and make it as neat as possible, and then run my guy wire down and attach to that loop of wire. So I'll try and make it as neat as possible, and we'll see how it goes. I've got my copper wire, so I'll run the one up through the drainage hole here, just kind of poking it through the nylon screening like that, and hopefully I can feed it up through the soil surface between the roots. There it comes, right there. And I'll pull that through because I want to form a loop of wire across here, and then I can attach my guy wires to it. So I will need to cut off the other end of the wire here, so I'll estimate how much I need. Probably safely to here. So I'll clip that off with my rusty old wire cutters. Like that. And then I'll bring the other wire up through the other drainage hole. Oh, it's coming. There it goes. So you can see the wire poking up here now. I've just got to get it fed through. So I want to pull these 2 wires quite tight against the bottom of the pot here. And they're pretty taut right now. Just give them a good... And then I'll want to loop this around. So I guess I have to decide which I'm going to display the tree as, the front here or here. Tough decision. I think for now I'm going to use this as the front, so this wired down branch is towards the back and it's less noticeable. And then maybe once that branch is set, I can make this the front of the tree. So I'll need to tie these 2 wires together to make a loop. So I'll cut the rest of my excess wire off here, making it kind of even to there. And I'll tie a loop, and hopefully I'll make the loop quite high, and that way it won't dig into the roots quite as much. So I'll just twist my wires here. So that's made a loop that I can attach the wires that I want to pull the branch down to. Make sure that's nice and tight. Like that. I can clip the excess wire off the ends here. Like that. And now for the branch, I will need to get some rubber pads because I don't want to leave a wire mark in the branch. So there's a look at my loop that'll attach the wires to pull down the branch to. For my rubber pads, I just use a piece of an old bicycle inner tube, and I'll wrap that around the branches, and that should, you know, help eliminate wire marks. It'll always leave some kind of a mark, but it'll be less noticeable than if the wire dug in. So I'll apply my rubber pad to the branch. I'll cut this in half so I can use half of it on this part of the branch and half on the other, and I will kind of loop them together when I get the wire in position. So there's my rubber pads on the branches, and I'll just clip off the wire that I'm going to use as my guy wire right here. Straighten it out a bit, it's kind of all bent up. This is just electrical grounding wire. It's 100% copper, and it's quite soft. It works well for bonsai. I'll be looping the one end down around this wire, and the other end I've got a bridge across the two branches up here. I think I'll start by wrapping the wire around one branch, so I'll make sure I have my rubber around here. Wrap it around several times, and that should really help to not injure that bark or dig in. And then I'll wrap my wire around it, and that'll hold the rubber in place like that. So I'm just looping it around the branch like that, so when I pull down on it, it's pulling down on the branch. And then I want to loop it across to the next branch, so I'm bridging. So I'll wrap my rubber around here, again wrapping it several times to create a nice spongy pad there, so it won't leave a nice wire mark in the bark. And then I'll bridge across like this, and then I'll wrap it around the next branch like that. Just one turn is fine. So now I have a wire going between the two branches, so I'll cut that off like that, and now I can bring my wire up here and loop it around this branch like so, and I'll just loop it around 2 turns, I guess. And now I can pull this branch down evenly across these 2 branches to my anchor point down here. So I'll do that. I'll pull my branch down like this, feed this wire between these 2 points, and then just pull it taut. And I've got to decide how much I want to pull that branch down, so I'll have to turn the tree around and look at it from the front. I'll turn the tree around now, like that, and I'll have a look. That doesn't look too bad. I could probably pull it down just a little bit more, so I'll do that. I kind of want it, this branch in between this angle. This is horizontal and this one goes down. So I'll just pull it down a little more. I think that's quite good. I will just wrap my wire around the anchor point a little bit, like that, and then I'll trim it off, making sure everything's nice and straight here. And I'll prune this wire off now, like that. And that has got the branch pulled down. I'm just out front now having a look at it. Looks much better with that branch pulled down. Separates those 2 branches, and you know, my lower branches are angling downwards. midpoint in the tree, they're horizontal, and then they go upwards towards the canopy, which is how I like to style them. And that's what you see in nature generally. My anchor, my guy wire, I wouldn't say it's the neatest in the world, but you know, it's there and it's doing the job. And sometimes when you take things, you know, interesting things like this to the show, people like to see, well, how did you apply the guy wire? And I'll show, yeah. Or how did you get those branches to come down like that? Well, you can show them. And sometimes it's nice to see it to show how people do things, not necessarily the final image of the tree. You know, techniques and that. So there we go. That's pulled down. I still need to do a little refinement in the canopy. It's still too cluttered up there. It's just a mass of needles. There's no branch separation. I think a little more refinement and it'll look more like more miniature, I guess is the word. Out towards the front of the tree here, there's a little cedar seedling. So I've got to remove that before the show, so I'll have to try and get as much root as I can and pull that out. Okay, I'm going to try and get that little cedar out now. In one piece, hopefully. It should have developed some roots by now. It's been growing since spring. Now I have a lot of these little cedars growing in my pots. They've just fallen down from the hedge that's behind me here and planted, or you know, just fallen into the pot and germinated by themselves. So I have a lot of them, and I'm hoping to make a little cedar forest out of all these seedlings someday. Okay, so there's the wiry root, so I'm going to pull it. I don't see. Here I go. I'm just going to pull it, and hopefully I get some root with it. Just gently tugging away like that. Seems, oh, it was coming really nicely, and then it broke off. But there is still some roots on it, so I will try. That's our larch root there. I'll try planting it, and we'll see what happens. I'll continue to clean up the larch, moving some of these lower needles. The rest, I think, is just basically cleanup work on the tree. I'm just cleaning up the soil surface now, getting rid of all these needles. And I want to tell you a story about one of my larches from long ago. I was working on a larch for many, many years, probably 12 years. And I didn't put it in the show because I was waiting. I was waiting till it looked really good, its best. And it was getting there. It had really nice branches. It was coming along really nicely. And I thought, okay, next year, that's going to be the year to show it. And that spring, it got boring insects in the trunk and it killed the tree. So I never did get to show the tree. And I don't even think I have any photographs of the tree. So I was probably, you know, the only person who ever saw the tree. And I don't know, I was always sorry that I didn't put it in the show the year before so other people could see it. Because, you know, it was quite a nicely developed tree. But, so it kind of taught me a lesson that, you know, you can wait all your life. The trees get better every year. Like, this tree's going to look much better next year. And the next year after that, it's going to look much better. And there's a certain point in time where, you know, your tree's acceptable to put in a show. Sure, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but it looks like a miniature tree, and it can go in the show. Maybe not a big show, but certainly a club show. Club shows are just, you know, your personal, you know, practice to display trees and get your tree prepared. It's you know, so you know what goes into preparing a tree and a display and everything. So I guess what I'm saying is that yes, this tree would look much better, you know, once that branch is set. It won't have this guy wire, and it definitely could use some more branch work, and you know, the needles don't look very miniature this year because the tree's just been left to grow, but it still looks like a miniature tree to me, and it's acceptable to put in a show. It's not looking its best. It will look better, but I think it's okay to put in the show as it is. And as I said, you know, people might be interested in seeing that guy wire. How did you put that guy wire on? What's that wire for? You know, so it gives someone who's looking at the tree something to talk about. They say, oh, what's that wire for there? And then you go in and explain what you're trying to do. You know, maybe your styling goals for the tree and that kind of thing. So I'll just trim the moss away from the lip of the pot now. Just come in with some scissors, like that. A little more here. And then you just push it down and it looks really nice. A bit here that's overhanging. Again, you just kind of push it down. It looks good. I'll rotate the tree around now so you can see it from all angles. So there's a possible front. Another possible front, which is the back for now. And back to the front here. It's time now for today's update. Today's update is my dragon tree bonsai. In the last video on this tree, I pruned off all the branches, shortening them all. So this is the third time it's been pruned. And there's no leaves on it yet, but if you look down at the base of all the branches, you can see the little bumps where the new branches are starting to form. There's a close-up look at those little bumps. So I'm hoping, it's getting towards the end of summer, but I think I have enough time left to keep it outdoors, and it should form the new branches. And I'm hoping they kind of all fan out. I may have to prune off the ones that are growing in towards the center of the tree. So I'll keep all these branches that are forming on the outside. So I'm hoping to get a canopy on top of this tree someday. And so far, it's looking really good. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.